Part two, the problem. Drowning in a sea of misdirection. There be a shitstorm a brewing. Shh, Randy, you hear that? The shit winds are coming. Jim Leahy, Trailer Park Boys. Be prepared. Frankie McDonald, Cape Breton's favorite weather enthusiast. Hey, Frankie, sorry about the horrible impression. I love you, man. All right. In today's society, we are bombarded with politicians, media, and marketing trying to sell you a world full of rainbow, sunshine, and unicorns, or a world where disaster is just around the corner. The data is in. You know more about the financial situation than the majority do, including those that are in the financial industry. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, but luckily, it's a pretty easy fix. Unfortunately, this fix is not shared by many. This section will share why our current financial system is not working for consultants, coaches, business owners, and countless others. 100% of us have done something stupid with our money at one time or another. What distinguishes those that repeatedly make the mistakes from those that achieve financial independence is the latter's ability to learn from their mistakes and make the appropriate changes. So, why do we make these mistakes in the first place? Why do we continue to do so? Why is there such a large gap between the successful and the struggling? Many experts would say this is due to the lack of education. And they might have a valid point. Consider it. Where did you get your financial education from? Who were your financial role models and who were theirs? Unfortunately, what worked in the past no longer applies, and I'll explain why. But let's explore where most people do seek financial guidance. Following the herd. The majority of Canadians that are hardworking go to the banks, that the banks are their go-to source for financial advice. Where do you think banks make most of their profits from? Well, let me tell you, it's from debt, credit cards, lines of credit, and mortgages. Knowing what I know, I find it crazy that Canadians turn to an institution that wants their clients to be a consumer and go into debt for financial guidance. But what about the traditional advice like invest 10% of your income into mutual fund or stocks? Let's take a closer look. Considering that the average Canadian household earns $95,351 after paying 42% in taxes and 18 bite from consumer debt, so that's 18% going towards their debt, the recommended 10% investment leaves a mere 29% for day-to-day spending. What happens to the average family 35 that works for 30 years, assuming a 3% pay raise, investing 10% into a mutual fund that gets a 4% return? Well, let's take a look. Their earnings of $4.5 million would lead to a wealth potential of over $8 million if they were able to keep and invest every penny that they made. We all know that this is never the case. If they invested 10% as usually recommended by the professionals, this would lead to a savings of slightly over $800,000 in 3 decades, while over $7.2 million slips away. Let me show you exactly what I mean. So we're showing a chart here where if they kept every penny that they made, they would invested it and got a 4% return. They would have over $8 million. But if we take the taxes away, you can see this decreasing. Then we add consumer debt, and then we put the 10% where they're supposed to put away. You can see that they have saved over 800,000, where 7.2 is gone. What if we did this where we doubled the amount of investment return, where we increased it by 100% and they got 8% instead of the 4? The same family would have saved over 1.5 million while having a wealth potential over 16 million, meaning that the money that they spent or went away from them could have had the potential of earning 8% too. What this shows is we're going to spend way more than we'll ever invest, and the majority of our money flips away from us. top 10% have found a way to keep their money and still buy the stuff that they want. Now, let me share with you a dirty little secret that the financial industry rarely talks about. Any investment involving stocks, bonds, or mutual funds will likely cost you more than you realize. The distinction between average and actual rate of return often leads to a misleading picture. The average rate of return showed on your account statement is usually higher than your actual rate of return due to taxes, fees, and inflation. Now, let me show you a quick example. Suppose you invested $100,000 into a mutual fund or stock. It skyrockets to 100% in the first year, which will never happen with a mutual fund. But let's say it goes up to 100%, so it reaches a value of 200,000. Then the next year, it dips down to 50%, bringing you back to that balance of 100,000. Now, how much did you actually make? Well, the answer is $0. But what's your actual rate of return? Again, it's zero. The average rate of return is 25%, where your actual is zero. Factoring in taxes, fees, and inflation, it's actually negative. There's a huge difference between actual rates of return and average rate of returns. History doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Darren Mitchell shows an excellent example. What would happen if you took your money and invested in the stock market in the 1970s, starting in 1970, in his book, Be the Bank? How long would your money last if you had $1 million and wanted to live off 10%, that 100,000 every year? Well, if you got the average rate of return, it would last you a long, long time. But if you got the actual rate of return as shown by Darren, your money would be gone in 13 years. Again, there's a huge difference between actual and average rate of returns, just like there's a huge difference between fact and fantasy. So, what do all these stats and numbers and mumbo jumbo actually mean? If you want to become financially independent, you have to stop taking average advice for average people. Financial planning for business owners differs significantly from those that are employees. An essential concept missing from the wealth equation is Parkinson's law, often referred to as the vicious cycle of money. The more you earn, the more you tend to spend, and you will spend way more than you're ever going to invest. The vicious cycle of money. When I went to university, I lived with 5 other swimmers. I was a soccer player, they were swimmers, in a place that we affectionately called the dump. Ever so often, we put together all our scrap food together and form a goulash because we didn't have enough money for groceries. I remember getting my first job, joining the workforce, and receiving my first paycheck and thinking I was rich. I started eating at pubs and fancy restaurants, and soon this became a habit or a regular occurrence. Hey, I could afford it and I deserved it. As my paychecks grew, so did my expenses. And then when we moved back to Nova Scotia, what hit my bank account was a lot lower, and the cost of living was higher, mainly due to taxes. I was used to a lifestyle that I could no longer afford and watched my bank accounts go lower as my stress levels went higher. Do you know that feeling? I used to think, oh, if I could only get 50% of my money back that I wasted for convenience at fast foods, restaurants, and pubs and the bars, while, while I was usually eating fast food or at a pub. It's not how much you make, but it's how much you get to keep while still enjoying life. I think you'd agree with me. Although university was fun, it's a lifestyle that we would never want to go back to. When you have financial stress, you have stress everywhere. You lack focus at work, relationships are strained, and your health suffers. If you do not have systems and strategies in place, it's near impossible to maintain the lifestyle you want, even when you're making the big bucks. Money will fall through the cracks. You will waste it on things that you don't actually want. Add up the upcoming volatility that's in the stock market and bond markets. No one's talking about the volatility in the bond markets, but Trust me, it's a place that you do not want to be. The rapid inflation, high interest rates, and the reduction in government spending. Yes, there's going to be a reduction in government spending coming up. Talk about the perfect storm to increase that feeling of being overwhelmed and stressed. The healthy, wealthy, and wise cycle. Wealth is not about money. Wealth is about the confidence in your ability to generate money. Unless you just won the lottery or got a huge inheritance, the first step to create wealth is to create income. For most of us, our income is the money that's earned from a job or from what we make from our business. Income from a job as an employee is not as attractive as other types of income because it is taxed the most heavily. Once you start to create that income, the next step is to figure out how to increase this income. This should be done by going from good to great, focusing on your strengths and becoming better at your career. This will only bring pay raises and more opportunities. Notice I didn't say get another job or find a side hustle. Let me share with you another secret that you probably already know. You will never get wealthy by creating only one source of income, especially if that income never increases. Now that you're going from good to great, you need to start following the philosophy of the wealthy described in Habit 4. This is where you start creating multiple flows of income, paying yourself first, save what you earn, invest, and watch the money grow as you continue this cycle where your income increases and you have the ability to generate money whenever you want, even when you're sleeping or hanging out with friends and family. Your biggest expense in life. There's another law that few people pay attention to. That's the Willie Sutton law. When asked why he robs banks, he said, because that is where the money is at. Likewise, when you shift your money mindset to a wealth mindset, you'll realize that making money or that earning money is the easy part. The challenge becomes keeping it. And one of the biggest thieves trying to take your money is taxes. Taxes is going to be your biggest expense in life. Habit 5 is going to show you how to reduce your taxes so you can keep more of your hard earned money instead of giving it away to the government for them to waste. As you can see, our attention is often focused on the 10% that we're supposed to be saving, but we overlook the 90% we're losing. We all know it was the bottom of the iceberg that sunk the Titanic, and this is what is sinking most people's wealth. Now, let me show you a case study on this. I had a consultant. He was in the energy efficiency and healthcare system. He was making pretty big bucks, working hard, head down, but he was becoming stressed and overwhelmed. He was angry because 50% of his income was going towards taxes, fees, and costs. His accountant recommended him to invest into his RSPs, where our solution was quite different. We told him to set up a main and spending account. We set up and operating a holding company properly. And inside the holding company, we designed a properly structured dividend paying whole life policy. We had low fee, actively managed ETF investments that also grew inside his holding company. And we helped send up a home line of credit for his house where he was able to pay that off faster and easier while paying less taxes too. And our results, we saved him about $15,000 a year in interest payments for that house alone. We reduced his taxes by 12%, giving him more than 11.5K more a year in his own pocket. The properly designed whole life policy compounds tax efficiently year after year, and he has the ability now to capture upcoming opportunities. We showed him by the time he gets to retire, if he follows the plan, he'll have an additional $3.2 million. And they booked their first vacation in 5 years. Powerful stuff. Love it. Okay. Lack of education is no longer the problem. This may have been the case 15 years ago, but it's no longer the case. We have all the information we'll ever need on how to be better leaders, better parents, and successful individuals. And if we don't know what to do, we can simply Google it or even now ask ChatGPT. The gap between the 10% who can retire on their own terms that are financially independent and the 90% who are not is no longer knowledge. It's about doing what you know. Knowledge is only potential power. Putting your knowledge into action is what is important. Knowing what to do and doing what you know. We all know we need to invest. We all know we need to focus on what's important. The big question then becomes, if we know what to do, why aren't we doing it? Why do we feel the way we do about money success? When it comes down to it, one of the biggest things missing from proper financial education is the simple fact that money is emotional. We tend to make mistakes and poor decisions when we are in an emotional state. And right now, things are very emotional. In this journey towards designing an even better future for you, your family, and your community, mastering our emotions is vital. Following the herd may not be emotionally challenging, but is also detrimental to your financial future. Thinking critically and making your own decisions is essential instead of mindlessly following others. Remember to stay true to yourself, your vision, your values, and your goals, even if it means going against the crowd. So, what's the point? Money is emotional. This fact is missing from most financial plans and is one of the major reasons that the majority of Canadians are struggling. Stop following the herd, protect yourself from yourself, and do what actually works. Put your knowledge into action.